very happy to be here with all of you and share some insights into the admissions process to institutions in the United States. There are currently about 4,700 colleges and universities in the United States, and with each of them having a slightly different admissions process, I know it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I assure you all of the information to make it a successful process for you is out there. And you all have great resources like myself and the other admissions representatives who are here today who can help guide you through the process for each of the different institutions represented. So please don't be shy in asking questions. We're more than happy to help. I've done this process for several years now, and I still learn something new every year. So lots of room to learn and network today with the different admissions representatives. So with 4,700 colleges and universities in the U.S., and each of them having a different admissions process, I'm going to help sort of break it down a little bit for you. But what that number means is that each of you here today will be able to find an institution where you'll have a good fit. And I encourage you to really focus on that idea of fit as you talk to the different admissions representatives. Now, what does that word fit mean with regards to institutions in the United States? That idea of fit means that you're going to spend 4 years on this college campus. And our hope is that those 4 years are a time where you're able to learn academically, you're able to engage in the community on that campus, and you're able to grow as a person while you're there. We want you to feel comfortable on that campus. We want you to feel supported on that campus, and we want you to feel like you have the opportunity to make a difference on that campus. For some students, that's going to be at a large institution. For others, it's going to be at a really small institution. For some of you, you might be looking to be in a really rural part of the United States, and for others you're going to want to be smack dab in the middle of a city. There's no perfect university that's going to fit each and every one of you, but ultimately there's going to be one individually for you. Okay, so really focus on that idea of fit. Does this community sound like one where I'm going to have all the opportunities that I specifically am looking for during the 4 years that I'm on that campus? Within that 4,700, there are a lot of different types of institutions. You have community colleges, you have colleges, you have universities, you have public institutions, you have private institutions, so a wide range of options. And each of them have different degrees that they will grant at their institutions. Now, with the admissions process to these universities, to these colleges, to these community colleges, you're going to find that they all practice it a little bit differently. You have one process that's called open enrollment, and that basically means that an institution will accept every single student that applies to that institution. Filling out an application is more of a formality so that they have personal information about you, can see your academics, and allow you to be placed in the correct classes. But ultimately, you're going to have access to that institution. Everybody will be admitted. You're going to find open enrollment at many community colleges. If you're seeking maybe a vocational degree, a technical degree, an associate's degree, those are going to be a lot of open enrollment institutions. A great fit for someone looking to start out. You also have what's called selective admission, and you're going to find this at a lot of colleges, some universities, depending on the amount of students that they admit from their applicant pools. Generally, selective admission schools will admit somewhere between 20 and 50% of the students that apply to that particular institution. This is where you're going to see the introduction to what's called holistic admissions. And basically what that means is that the college or university is taking into consideration multiple different factors when making a decision on your application. They might look at more than just your academics and your test scores when making a decision. You also have what's called highly selective admission, and those are institutions that will admit less than 20% of the students that apply to that particular institution, okay? You're going to see a very strong focus on that holistic admissions process at selective institutions. They're going to really dig into your application to see how you're going to impact their community, what academics you might take a part in, what clubs and organizations you might get involved with. They really want to see your involvement and how you've been a member of your community in your high school. Now, a couple of the different factors that will be taken into account when you're looking more at the holistic process, but also for other institutions, they may require you to submit some information. We're going to look at your academics. We want to see how you've performed within your high school. We understand that there are different curricula around the world, and our readers internationally are trained to understand the different curricula. Okay, we want to see what you've had available to you and how you've performed within that. We don't have necessarily a preference for one curriculum over the other, so really just allowing us to understand how you've performed within your environment. Whether that's the local curriculum here, maybe you have access to AP classes, maybe you have access to IB classes. Ultimately, we just want to get a sense of how you performed within your environment. I'm sure you all have heard of the SAT, the ACT, and other standardized tests that are available, and that is something that's going to be required of many institutions in the United States. If you go to the different websites for the admissions offices, you're going to see pretty clearly what their requirements are in regards to standardized testing. And I encourage you to really keep track of that for all of the different institutions that you're considering, because we all have slightly different policies. So, but this really refers to 3 different tests, especially for those of you that are applying this upcoming year. You're going to have the ACT, the old version of the SAT, some of you may have taken that, and the new version of the SAT, the redesigned SAT. So you're going to want to keep that in mind, but ultimately we're going to work with you in terms of whatever the testing is that you've taken to make sure that we're able to get your application completed. But you're going to want to be keeping a keen eye on the different testing requirements for those schools. Now know that testing, some schools will have minimum requirements, others may not have minimum requirements. So again, checking out those websites is going to prove helpful for you throughout that process. Now, in addition to your academics and your testing, at schools that practice holistic admissions, they're going to ask for a couple of other things. Primarily your extracurricular activities, your recommendations from teachers and administrators in your school, and a personal statement. So I'm going to go through each of those. The extracurricular activities, this really refers to anything that you've done outside of the classroom in your high school environment. Many of the colleges and universities in the United States have a strong emphasis placed on the community at that institution, and we want to see students that are going to take part in those communities. And that's going to be found by looking at how you've been involved in your high school. So getting involved, whether it's clubs at your school or activities at your school, involvement in your local community, maybe you have a part-time job. We just want to see that you're using your time outside of the classroom well, that you're maybe taking on some leadership roles, maybe making an impact on your local community, just getting a sense of what you might bring to our campus. The letters of recommendation, we generally will ask for recommendations either from a counselor or an administrator at your school, potentially some teachers from your school as well, so we can get some insight into how you have been from a personal standpoint in the environment at your high school. This could be involvement in your classroom. Are you the type of student that has tons of questions, or you're really involved in classroom discussions, or maybe you're more dynamic on in small group work when you're working and collaborating with your peers. We just want to get a sense of how you engage in the learning environment at your institution. The personal statement, I know that there's a lot of anxiety over the personal statement. This is something that the students in the United States also have a lot of anxiety over because it's unknown. There's no direct path or formula that you can fill out in order to write your personal statement. There's no specific topic that we're looking for, but rather just looking to gain some insight into who you are, what you're passionate about, what you hope to do with your life. Maybe an activity or something that you've been really involved in and has really made a deep impact on you. The personal statement tends to be the favorite part for admissions officers because it's the one part of this entire application process where we get to hear from you as the student. They make us laugh, they make us cry, they touch us deep in the soul, depending on what the student writes about. And there's not a perfect essay. So have fun with it, use it as a time for self-reflection in terms of learning more about yourself and getting that down on paper. There are also sometimes some other factors that might be taken into consideration, but not necessarily at other institutions. If you're applying to a music school, you might have to submit an audition, or in an art program, you might have to submit a portfolio. Some institutions might require interviews. Geographic diversity might be taken into account if you're an international student, different types of international students. And if you have financial need, that might be something that's taken into account as well. But ultimately, our hope is that students, through this process, you're able to learn a little bit more about yourself. You're able to determine a great fit with particular institutions in the United States, but that we're also able to determine a good fit with you and how we can see you impacting our institution. So that's where I'm going to stop. I look forward to any questions that you have. My booth is right down here, so if you guys do have questions that come up, please feel free to stop by and learn more about Vanderbilt as well. Thank you.